the spooky month. Hi everybody, and
Yeah,
come gather on the
Goji
fire.
Guy.
One of my favorite things I've done on this channel is working with my amazing artist Valerie, go follow her on Instagram by the way, and making all sorts of hybrids. Godzilla hybrids, dinosaur hybrids, and xenomorph hybrids. Just non-stop combinations of monsters. And man, do I love them all near and dear. They're all cooked up in my radioactive brain and drawn beautifully by an artist. I sure would hate for something to happen to them. No! Spinosaurus, my baby! Who did this to you? You! For so long, I was the guy that made the hybrids. And right as I step my foot into the Jurassic scene, Goji Center pulls the rug under my feet and flattens my dinosaurs with their own marvelous creation, the Indom 2.0. This beast shreds through my dinosaurs. The only way my guys could stand a chance is if they worked together in perfect unison. But they couldn't. They're all dead. Eaten alive by Goji Center's beast. But that ends now. Today in the Goji Guy laboratories, I will be developing a dinosaur. No, a monster. So violent, so deadly, so unkillable. It will put the Indom 2.0 6 feet under in a heartbeat. Today we'll be making the Indom 2.0's killer. The Indom at the end of this video will be nothing more than a piece of candy stuck in his teeth. Happy Halloween, everybody, and let's get cooking. The nice thing about this channel is that realism, yeah, it was never a part of this channel, which off the bat is our biggest advantage. While Goji Center is bound and held back by real-world science, ours, yeah, no. Our dino flips the bird to evolution and physics. So let's start with a baseline dinosaur to build onto. Let's start with the Spinosaurus, shall we? The Spino provides a body that is large but simple, allowing us to add onto it with ease. Even so, the Spino is already a formidable opponent. With his long arms and strong jaw, this allows our dino to be blessed with a long reach, allowing us to attack our enemy while they can't hit us. But let's continue. Let's add the Giganotosaurus, giving us superb durability, along with strong legs and an incredible bite. Already we have a deadly hybrid on our hands. But we want to take down the Indom 2.0, so we need a lot more. Next up is the main component of our enemy, the Indominus Rex. The Indom gives us a plethora of other dino DNA, such as T-Rex, Velociraptor, Therizinosaurus, Deinosuchus, and much more, boosting us even further. She also brings longer claws, deadly sharp teeth, and thermal vision. And all of that is good, but the most important part now is that we are now part Indom, meaning we'll know how the Indom 2.0 fights, how it behaves, how it functions. And lastly for dino DNA, we'll be taking in the first ever hybrid dino, the Scorpius Rex. Not only are we adding it to the pot, but firstly, we'll be altering his DNA, making his venom much more potent and deadly. But here's where it gets super unnecessarily broken. Now for context, most scaled animals have similar features to hairy animals when it comes to oil production. Like how your or my hair produces oil, some scaled animals rely on a combination of mucus and natural oil to keep them healthy. This is where things get broken. We're not only changing the venom of the Scorpius, as you'll see in a moment, we're changing how it comes out. While sure, the dino will still have quills, it's also not producing it for every single one of its scales, making it so that if you bite or slash at it, you will one way or another get toxin within you. And the toxin, well, here's what we did. Now, within seconds, the enemy's blood congeals, making it so that the Indom 2.0 hits us, its own blood solidifies in its body, making it agonizing to move, and slowly killing the Indom as there's now no blood flow throughout the body. And thanks to Scorpius, we're also now immune to any sort of disease. So I believe there's now already an argument to be held. This custom dino is already practically unstoppable. Even the Indom 2.0 would have some issues, as anywhere it tries to bite or cut, it could start to kill itself. And our dino could also deal some hard hits. But we aren't done just yet. We want to make sure that no matter what Goji Center or any other channel in the future creates, this silly dino will still stay on top. Next up is chameleon DNA. This allows us to camouflage even better, and we also have near 360-degree vision. That paired with the thermal vision already makes it impossible for anything to sneak up on us. And that also gives us a very strong and prehensile tail, allowing us to practically hang from trees and hide. But we of course aren't done yet. Next up is the bite. Goji Center's Indom 2.0's main feature is its insane bite. And I promised myself I wouldn't use anything they used. So instead, we're using the behemoth that is the Dunkleosteus. Now it's hard to say how strong the Dunk's bite is, but researchers say somewhere between 11,000 pounds per square inch all the way up to 80,000 pounds. Now, why not the Megalodon, you may ask? While yes, it's widely speculated that Megalodon has a stronger bite, we're actually using the Dunk for its quick snapping attributes, as the way its jaw works allows it to rapidly snap its jaw shut, meaning that if the Indom 2.0 is unlucky enough to have any of its body near the mouth, it will be gone before it can even realize. But there's still one big issue, the arms. The Indom 2.0 has some massive arms, so what will we add to counter it? An orangutan? An elephant? Nope, a shrimp. Yes, really. Specifically, the pistol shrimp. As those who don't know what a pistol shrimp is, let me explain. The pistol shrimp, despite its small size, is one of the most dangerous animals on the planet. This because of their method of attack. Now, it makes them hit so hard is due to many factors, but the main ones being, 1, Their claws operate like a lever, amplifying the force of their snap. And 2, their claws close incredibly fast, often hitting their target over 50 miles an hour. Now, while we haven't given the dino claws, we will give the pistol shrimp's fast muscles, allowing the dinosaur to attack at lightning speeds, with one hell of a punch behind it. And to add on further, the pistol shrimp, even though it's only around 2 inches in length, are able to punch with roughly 150 pounds of force, hitting so fast they vaporize the water around them in the process. Scaling those tiny arms up to our dino, we're looking at a dinosaur that in a blink of an eye could hit you with hundreds of tons of force. Pretty much imagine a tugboat slamming into you at 150 miles an hour. Yeah, no matter who you are, that will not be a fun time. So everything is together. Time to mix it all up. The Spino's body length, the Giga's strength with the Indom's muscle mass, the claws and fangs of the Indom, the quills and toxin of the Scorpius, the fast muscles for the arms and jaw from the shrimp and dunk. The shrimp's headpiece is a sharp skull, good for headbutting and stabbing, a thick tail from the Dunkleosteus, perfect for speedy swimming, and the eyes, a custom touch. So the last thing the Indom 2.0 sees are bright red eyes. Fusing all these animals together, and you're left with Hank. Yes, really, that's his name. Hank is a freakish beast, not meant for the real world. His only purpose is to avenge his fallen brethren, the Gigaraptor, Spinonotosaurus, Endoxenosaurus, and the Anchiceratops. I think I can say comfortably, we have made a dinosaur that is able to take down the Indom 2.0. Whether he dies afterwards isn't the matter. The only goal is to take out the Indom, and his goal is completed. But Goji Center's smart, crafty, hell, I'd even say brilliant. Whether they mean to or not, they will someday design another dinosaur, one that not even Hank could stand a chance against. So we've taken it one step further and added an animal so stupidly powerful, it has been deemed as the unkillable animal, the tardigrade. The tardigrades, despite being a microscopic organism, are by far the most resilient creatures on the planet, being able to handle temperatures from negative 458 degrees Fahrenheit and all the way up to 302 degrees Fahrenheit. They can survive insane pressure over 6,000 times the standard atmosphere. Pressure that strong can turn gas into liquid and turn liquids into solids. They can tank radiation like a champ. They can survive years without water. They can withstand high levels of toxins and extreme pH levels, and they can even survive the vacuum of space. Not even the great beyond, that is the boundlessness of space, can kill these guys. So, I think it's safe to say, Hank wins this battle. Thank you all very much for watching, and go out there and have a fun Halloween. And I want to clarify, there is no beef between me and Goji Center. This video is done entirely for fun and in the spirit of Halloween. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to subscribe if you want to see more dino and kaiju content. But, as always, keep trick-or-treating. Goji Guy, out. See ya. It's the...
That was... Hank! Goji Guy's first ever hybrid dinosaur that made to take on the Indom 2.0. Now we'll be going for the analysis Goji Center made, kinda murdering Hank already.
Here on Goji Center HQ.
Here it is. This happened when you challenge Goji Center. You get fucked.
Here on Goji Center HQ, the team was minding our own business, cooking up some upcoming batches of nightmare fuel for a future episode, when this came up on our radar.
What
don't
the
worry,
fuck
if
is
we
it?
hadn't noticed it, plenty of other people would have, and we're all too happy to let us know.
That's the bloop.
Upon digging a little deeper to find out what all the commotion was about, a whole plethora of mentions, comments, and messages, we stumbled across a rather interesting creation. Meet Hank, a monstrous hybrid creation cooked up by the YouTuber Goji Guy and talented artist Valeria_LNX. Sporting a body covered in toxins, jaws of the dreaded Dunkleosteus, skin and eyes of a chameleon, the striking power of a pistol shrimp, and the uncanny survivability of a tardigrade. A truly terrifying creature that was custom built to destroy our Indom 2.0. This animal was conjured by the great minds of the research team of Goji Center, brought together with one goal: exterminate all life on Nublar. And it more or less had the potential to cause a global health crisis. This animal minding its own business was pitted against a new amalgamation, a hybrid battle that we never asked for but got dragged into. So fine, after the challenge aimed our way, we have exactly what a lot of you wanted to see. A horrific beast with precisely calibrated abilities to make it as lethal as it could be to bring Hank down. Indominus 2.0 is hereby upgraded to... nothing.
What?
No, seriously, we aren't changing anything.
Wait,
What you're looking at is Indom 2.0, but with different skins in Jurassic World Evolution. Cool, right? Nexus
Yeah.
mods link below. Anyways, instead, she's stepping back into the analysis platform, and today we'll evaluate how our monstrous creature stands up against its new challenger, revealing a few tricks she had up her sleeve all along, and also lay bare a few critical weaknesses in its adversary. Making a hybrid doesn't mean automatically combining the best traits of both with no trade-offs. For every strength you add, you also add weaknesses. And because the dinosaurs and creatures in the Jurassic series are real animals, we can use real-life biology. After all, the Indominus Rex's fantastic ability to change color isn't something out of fantasy, like Godzilla's atomic breath, but because it has similar skin to a cuttlefish that can do that in reality. For starters, let's take a look at what we understand to be Hank's composition. Base body frame of a modified Spinosaurus, combining other entire genome sets, such as that of the Indominus, Scorpius Rex, and an entire legion of animals, many from different classes. At least 20 species, and who knows what else is in there too. Recall what Dr. Wu said to Masrani.
You cannot have an animal with exaggerated predator features without the corresponding behavioral traits.
A Therizinosaurus, Spino, and Pistol Shrimp might be used to fighting with their arms, but even more animals on the list didn't. T-Rex, Giga, Dinosuchus, and a bunch of wimpy-armed Abelisaurus. Hank's instincts on how to fight with its arms is going to be messed with. It would be every neural problem the Scorpius Rex had, but amplified. Some additives like the chameleon would actually hinder it. Giving Hank movable eye stalks like the chameleon would mess with its binocular vision from T-Rex genes. And it would compromise its own camouflage from the cuttlefish. Turns out pop culture lied here. Chameleons are not actually masters of disguise as you may think. A few types can change color to hide, but most of the time these lizards reactively change color to show emotion. Mix in the chaotic mind of the Scorpius on top of everything else, and Hank would be lighting itself up like a neon sign instead of using its camo like the Indominus could. This is precisely why the total number of species in the Indominus 2.0 genome was kept small. See for yourself. Base Indominus had at least 13 total confirmed contributors to its genome. Indom 2.0 only has 9 confirmed. Reducing the number of contributors in turn increases congruity, meaning each individual component works together and lessens split instincts. But is less actually more? We think so. With a quadrupedal stance and lacking raptor-like feet or a sail, the 2.0 would be a lot more stable than the top-heavy and seemingly less balanced Hank. Based on their frames alone, if they get in a wrestling match, the Indom is less likely to go down first. To make this as fair as possible, we're going to ignore the fact that Indom 2.0 can reproduce clones of itself extremely fast via parthenogenesis, thanks to the whiptail lizard, producing an army of these animals. So we'll keep this to a 1v1 discussion. But even with this, you'll find that it will be getting easier for the Indom. How? Let's compare their jaws. Despite their tiny size, shrews use their jaws in a manner not that much different than Tyrannosaurus. With iron-reinforced teeth and a strong bite force, they chomp right through armored exoskeletons, tough scales, and mulch bone. Their method of biting down, where they crunch and thrash, works very well in conjunction with the T-Rex, who did almost the same thing. What about the Dunkleosteus-fueled bite of Hank? It all comes down to bite mechanics. Yes, Dunkleosteus has a very famous bite, but it is an attribute that the internet and pop culture have massively flubbed. PSI, or pounds per square inch, is not a very reliable way to measure biting force unless you are very careful about what you're doing. This is why some reported biting forces from this armored fish are as low as 1,000 PSI to an obscenely huge 80,000. These mostly come from bad reporting and not actual research work. This is why scientists that study how animals use their jaws rely on other measurements, like newtons. This may come as a bummer for most of you, especially the creators of Hank, but scientific research on the infamous fish determined it had a jaw strength of only around 4,000 to 7,000 newtons. That might sound like a lot, but in reality, that's half the force of a great white shark. Instead of chomping down, the dunk was built more for having its mouth open quickly to suction feed on small prey and then bite down quickly to carve into more medium-sized game. The findings of one Dunkleosteus that was attacked by another also shows this shearing bite failed to penetrate the thick armor on the fish, meaning the full-body bony armor of the Indom 2.0, courtesy from the dwarf croc, would actually resist a lot of Hank's bite. But why not factor in the bite force of the other contributors in Hank's genome, like T-Rex? Surely that will pierce the Indom's hide, right? The bites of the Dunk and the Rex are the perfect example of why animals either bite down hard and crunch, or they can open their mouth wide and bite down exceptionally fast. Can't have both. Trying to put T-Rex force behind a Dunk jaw can result in the poor thing smashing its own face.
Oh God!
But surely those overpowered arms wielded by Hank can punch Indom 2.0 into oblivion with hundreds of tons of force. Well, let's find out. One of Hank's killer apps to try to make it the killer of 2.0 was one of the most innocuous-looking creatures in the ocean. Pistol shrimp are an entire family of small crustaceans with a very specialized snapping mechanism in their arms. By cocking back one claw, they are able to force water into a chamber and then explosively convert the captured water into steam to make a bubble that snaps with an average of over 700 newtons of force. An impressive adaptation for both hunting small game and defending themselves, especially given that sound is much stronger underwater than it is in the air. Taking this mechanism and its striking power out of the water and applying this to a dinosaur will likely work against Hank. Doubling this mechanism in size doesn't double strength. Now Hank has to worry about moving the weight of its hands much faster. And add in that water is nearly 1,000 times denser than air, and any weapon that produces pressure waves is far less powerful in the air than in the water. So up here, this snapping or punching will be outright impossible. And if it was, well, not to bore you with the math, but Hank's shrimp-fueled striking force would be around 16,145 newtons. Remember that the huge forces of the pistol shrimp are not about strength, but how the physics of water work. But let's throw water physics out of the window, and let's say that these hands strike with said hundreds of tons of force. Unless Hank's shoulders are made of vibranium, the blowback would shatter its own arms even if it missed. Dinosaur arms aren't meant to do these things at this scale, and honestly, you can't expect them to. Hank would disarm itself on day one upon using this striking force on practically anything, before it grows up large enough to fight the 2.0. So far, we have an animal with a shattered face, broken forearms, self-inflicted by the way, and now it's the perfect time we bring up something Hank's creators may have forgotten about.
Yeah.
Hank had some pretty tough animals in the genome, like the Giga, Indom, and Spino, but none of them are particularly armored nor really resistant to stabs, much less getting a sharpened metal pole shoved into them. Even if facing against the one-punch man of hybrids, the Indom 2.0's tool use, dexterity, and grappling would give her plenty of means to strike back, including at range. Recall that the great ape genome and hand augmentations allow the Indom to make use of these effectively and with purpose. But if we're going to stick solely on weapons that aren't laying around on the floor, another one of Hank's defense mechanisms comes into play.
Pitch trapping.
In nature, one of the most common defenses and offenses are poison and venom. Hank comes into the fray with a modification to the oil-producing glands it has across its skin, producing a toxin that causes what is technically called intravascular coagulation. This can cause nasty blood clots if in big doses, and one snake, the Russell's viper, even uses it as a chief component in its venom. The problem? Hank got handed the wrong poison for the wrong job. Remember these two? We didn't cover this in the Indominus 2.0's rampage across Isla Nublar, but we didn't forget about Dr. Wu's first hybrid. The Scorpius Rex would be rampant enough to pick a fight against the Indom 2.0, so we'd give our hybrid a hidden edge if it ever went up against another toxic opponent. And boy, did it show up. It's a little-known fact, a favorite food of crocodilians just so happens to be snakes, including highly venomous vipers. Able to section off parts of their bloodstream to avoid circulating the toxins too far with strong antibodies, crocs can tank bite after bite from toxic prey with often little effect. And short-tailed shrews aren't just venomous in their own right, they shrug off most poisons. Their own venom can cause rapid blood coagulation and muscle locking worse than many snakes. They are immune to their own and similar toxic elements called glycoproteins. Add in a hyperactive metabolism that can break down blood clots and purge toxins very quickly, and it's a big pair of reasons why shrews are also known to hunt and kill snakes many times their size. So, in other words, Hank's main defense wouldn't do anything to the Indom 2.0. Blood clots just couldn't affect it enough. Ironically, especially since this was sold off as the peak survivability trait that would deter any future opposition against Hank, tardigrade traits in this case will cause huge drawbacks. Tardigrades are legendary for their ability to survive radiation, heat, and cold when in their dormant state. The key to this are the gel-like proteins that surround their cells called CAHS proteins. This gel can spare the cell from a lot of things, but it can't stop toxins that attack the connections between the cells. And coincidentally, this is exactly how the neurotoxin in the shrew venom works in addition to blood clotting. In fact, giving more proteins around the cells just gives more for the venom to work off of. And this is something that can't be averted. Get the tardigrade perks, if any, and you also take their weaknesses. After laying bare the critical weaknesses of Hank, it's now safe to say that without even changing a single thing to the 2.0's genome or lifting a single finger, Indom 2.0 remains undefeated. Furthermore, Hank's overpowered jaw and hands disarmed itself before it could even step in the fighting ring. He did this to himself. However, to the merit of Hank's creators, this is a fantastic design as a monster. With just raw force or some tweaks, Hank could stand his ground against the 2.0 and actually have a good shot at winning. Its visible adaptability to swimming and being adept to most terrains, truly horrifying appearance, and malevolent nature is truly something that we at Goji HQ appreciate and would look forward to featuring on the channel again. But here on Goji Center, we are not cooking up 3.0 to counter it. 2.0 is lethal enough. For now, though, Indom 2.0 has other problems to worry about. Much bigger problems.
Ooh, there's Impeditrix. Now, we'll be going over the third one of the Hank creation.
Hank. You all know him well. And if you don't, you are very, very behind, my friend. Go watch this video, and then this one if that's the case. But for everyone else who's been waiting, today is the day. Today we not only bring back Hank, the hybrid that started the war, but also make him better in every aspect.
Along with that, we will go into depth on his new genome, his new abilities, and explain just how deadly his new form is. All of this will be achieved using real-world science. Along with that, we will discuss how he will dominate his new environment and how he is now truly a competition for the Indom 2.0. So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Goji Center.
Grab a snack, as today we're happy to welcome back the one that caused the hybrid war. Say hello to Hank 2.0.
Hank is being improved, modified, perfected, the ultimate champ.
So again, welcome everybody. I'm your co-host Goji Guy, along with a special guest here today, that being Goji Center. In today's video, we have heard your all's cries, and plan to upgrade Hank in every aspect to make sure he not only thrives in his new body, but also doesn't, well, blow himself up. So make sure to subscribe if you like anything dinosaur or Godzilla related, and let's get cooking. So let's start with a little recap, covering Hank's original genome, along with the issues that came with it. Hank was made far before the realism rule was at play with all the more modern hybrids. So to anyone that hasn't heard the genome yet, buckle up. Hank's genome included Spinosaurus, Giganotosaurus, Indominus Rex, Scorpius Rex, Chameleon, Dunkleosteus, Shrimp, and Tardigrade. Yeah, I know. Now, while you can have a wide variety of animals within a hybrid, which you will see with Hank 2.0, the issue is they have to be very selective and careful with how you put them together. So let's start with Hank's most prominent issues. We need to address these issues as to make sure we don't replicate them, and to pretty much make sure this version of Hank is, well, Hank-proof. Yeah. Firstly, arms.
Yeah,
now, for those who haven't seen the video on Hank, which if you haven't, go watch it now, when making Hank, who's meant to counter and outdo the Indom 2.0 in every way. And to those who have seen the Indom 2.0 video, you know that the 2.0 has some super strong claws and arms. So when making Hank, I give him some of the hardest hitting arms in the animal kingdom, or, well, claws, using the pistol shrimp. But long story short, using pistol shrimp claws and a dinosaur arm just isn't how the pistol shrimp works, much less increasing the force with the size like I said it would. In doing all this, at least when you bring Hank into a world that follows closely with our laws of physics, well, Hank blows his own arms off. His bones aren't able to withstand the force and end up blasting off his own body. Next up, his jaw. The Indom 2.0 had a crazy iron bite, making it almost impossible to have any skin resistant to it. So rather than building custom skin or armor to withstand the attack, I decided to beat it in its own game. Not only using T-Rex DNA for the sheer bite force, but also adding Dunkleosteus DNA for a quick snapping jaw. Now while this seems fine at first, it's when you bring up the fact that in the animal kingdom, you can really only have one or the other. In nature, animals either have a strong bite, a quick bite, or some sort of ability, say toxins or electrocyte cells. Hank here is trying to do both, which again, no bones can withstand. So Hank would bite in full force and speed. This ends up breaking his own face, destroying his lower jaw in a single strike, making it impossible for him to continue in battle. And finally, his mental stability. Using the Scorpius Rex was already a big issue, but putting that together with multiple other dinosaurs, along with a chameleon that changes colors via emotion, was a terrible idea, making Hank act very dramatic. So the biggest issue is his arms, jaw, and psyche. When making 2.0, we need to make sure Hank is able to, well, withstand his own body and mind. And then as we move on to his upgrades and new features. So let's rebuild Hank. Goji Center, take it away.
All right, everyone, sit down, everyone, and get
Sit down,
comfortable, because
motherfucker.
class is in session. Those who have been following this entire hybrid fiasco know very well that Hank did need a bit of improvements. The design and overall concept was actually good enough for us at Goji Center to offer a complete overhaul of Hank's genome, making him true to its original form while keeping the hallmark abilities of Hank. That being a quick, snapping jaw, very powerful arms, toxic traits, and a build that more or less resembles an animal in the Spinosauridae family. With that in mind, let's begin with the base. Since Jurassic Park animals are fair game in this scenario, we will keep the original base animal, the Spinosaurus seen in Jurassic Park 3 and Camp Cretaceous. Goji Guy's decision to select this animal actually was a pretty good idea. To its merit, this animal proved to be a pretty good combatant, grappler, and an adept swimmer. There are things we could take from its real counterpart, the Spinosaurus aegyptiacus, that could actually enhance the base build of this animal without compromising congruity. One aspect of the real-life Spinosaurus that was not present in the JP3 version was the unique foot anatomy. Spinosaurus was one of those very few cases where theropods would walk on all 4 digits, with almost certainly having webbing between them, improving swimming and increasing stability when standing on mucky terrain. The first iteration of Hank seemed to feature a tadpole-like tail. Instead of borrowing from another animal, we can use the real-life Spinosaurus. The tail of the JP3 was nothing special compared to the real thing. Using this paddle-like structure that will later be optimized with a later addition will not only make Hank 2.0 more adept in the water, but also add musculature in assisting Hank in adopting a tripod stance when rearing up to fight. This stance not only makes him look taller and more imposing, but tightens his circle of rotation to turn himself around quicker. To further bolster the cooperation between body and tail, a Patasaurus makes itself present in this mix. A sauropod which could adopt this stance as well, with reinforcements on the bottom of the tail, as well as providing enhanced growth capabilities, helping it get a bit larger and grow fast, like real sauropods could. Now, you may recall that the original Hank had a sail along its back, the material of which looked a bit fishy. Nothing wrong with that, but it could be improved. The original Dunkleosteus gene will hereby be replaced by another fish, who provides a much more useful sail. The appropriately named sailfish will come in handy. Selecting only the genes in charge of developing the sail structure, this addition will not only give Hank 2.0 a large fin to help it maneuver in the water, but also make it collapsible. That's right, Hank 2.0, for reasons that you will find out later, is now able to navigate easier through wide crevices without ruining its sail, keeping it tucked away during combat to prevent any ripping, or moving through dense foliage to avoid it getting tangled up. Now to the biological warfare aspects. In a previous video, we broke down Hank's original ability to secrete poison through its skin via oil glands, and it didn't really work. To fix this problem, we will use 2 animals, a modern-day dinosaur and one aquatic fish, to make this the instigator of the worst acid trip ever. Venom is when you bite someone and they get sick. Poison is when something bites you and you get sick. But there are ways to be poisonous without risking injury. You just need ways to deliver the poison in ways that don't hurt yourself. And there are several means, one of which would be present in one of the only known toxic dinosaurs. That's right, here is a hooded pitohui, a curious-looking bird from New Guinea that is loaded with a cocktail of toxins spread across the body tissue and even on its skin and feathers. The fact that this bird is alive and functional means that the bird itself has to be resistant to a wide range of toxins, as they can, in some cases, be more toxic than poison dart frogs. Now, admittedly, these toxins come from stuff that they eat. They don't just excrete poison out of nowhere. What we really need from this bird is the ability to excrete toxins through its skin onto the quills, which will be present on Hank 2.0. The source of this toxicity and the ability to process this poison will come from the Sarpa salpa, reported to cause hallucinations and debilitation like LSD when bitten into. Like the pitohui, this fish itself isn't poisonous, but it comes from algae it eats. This internal physiology and the bird's ability to then allocate these toxins on skin and quills will be useful for Hank. Now, most animals that take a bite of and eat a chunk of Hank will likely begin to hallucinate and act a bit off. And as we'll get into this later, this version of Hank would actually be an omnivore and spend a lot of time in riverways, meaning that there will be lots of algae to snack on and convert to said toxins. Given the sheer volume of toxins involved, Hank might even taint some water formations, causing anyone to drink this affected water to suffer from the effects. That is, if Hank remains submerged long enough in stagnant water. One of the big problems with the original version of Hank was the bite. With tooth and jaw, the three methods of attack are the following: slash and rend like a shark, clamp and crush like a T-Rex, or snap and engulf like the Dunkleosteus. Hank's problem was that the creators tried to make this animal do all three things at once, resulting in catastrophe. Our goal, Hank's Bite, is to make something that works differently than the Indom 2.0 to allow Hank to confront and defeat different types of opponents, some of which the Indom 2.0 might have trouble with. Hank's jaws will combine aspects of Giganotosaurus on top of the already existing Spinosaurus. Now, while neither of these carnosaurs had the same biting pressure of a T-Rex, neither of these bite forces were at all weak, with plenty of evidence that these could shatter bone and cut deep into the skeleton itself. To better blend these two forces without compromising any of the teeth, the Giga comes equipped with an enlarged chin, which helps the Giga withstand the torque, snapping the jaws down rapidly like those of a bear trap. This feature will prevent Hank 2.0 from smashing its own face like last time. So far, Hank's tooth arrangement looks like this: Spinosaur-like teeth on the front of the jaw to grasp and stab into a target. In the latter part, we have the serrated Giga-like teeth to act like a homicidal hacksaw to shred flesh and bone. These may not crush as well as its partner, but will certainly get the job done, and is likely to inflict more bloody wounds, enabling easier tracking of any prey that escaped. The armored plating on top of the head of the Giganotosaurus will reinforce the cranium to act as a real bludgeon in the midst of battle, and keeping that pointy crest influenced by the marine sailfish element. We aren't quite done yet with the teeth. The original Hank did have quite the distinct look, and to not deprive it from the joys of biting extra hard into a victim, Thylacoleo makes itself present into this mix by providing two sets of enlarged blade-like incisors, which further bolster the Spinosaurus' insane gripping ability at the front of the jaw. Pairing those blade-like tusks on the front of the jaw with the rapid snaps and sturdy skull from the two carnosaurs, and you have a good recipe for rapid stabbing and slicing into whatever Hank starts biting into, bypassing armor or dermal tissue to hit the blood vessels underneath more effectively. Another big problem that OG Hank had that ultimately contributed to its ruin was the foolish use of the pistol shrimp arm mechanic. If you remember, this sort of impact is only viable underwater, and if somehow this was possible up here on land, then, well, you wouldn't have an arm left. To allow Hank to have a hell of a haymaker, we will resort to some of the extinct mega mammals, whose living relatives include tree sloths, anteaters, and armadillos. Hank's arms will be anatomically similar to Lestodon. This was one of the largest of the ground sloths, with the big ones reaching the size of elephants. We'll take the olcranon, or elbow spike, which acts as a force multiplier, and the arm attachments across the deltoid tuberosity. If you take a look at these lower arm bones like the ulna and radius, you'll notice that they are extremely robust and sturdy enough to withstand a lot of force. Add the very strong grip that these animals have, and you have an animal that can hold and slap a lesser animal's face right off. With what claws, you might ask? Well, we'll go back to our ground sloth in a bit in order to bring back the Thylacoleo. They also contribute here, thanks to its very pronounced thumb claw with a great range of motion to act as a grappling device. Even the Apatosaurus contribution adds to this, as it's one of the many types of sauropods that actually did bear an enlarged talon on their thumb, which it certainly used. More congruity and even better thumb claw. One extra asset that we can graft on with the benefit of precision gene editing that allows Hank to secrete toxic oil from the quills is the Komodo dragon's iron-enriched teeth. Not only do they also have an impressive set of claws to complement the sloth and thylo, but this could provide slight iron enrichment as well as keratin reinforcement. Reptiles have a different type of keratin than mammals. Known as beta-keratin, this material is stronger than the alpha-keratin mammals have and will further strengthen these claws. Thalassocnus is our contributor not only for the arm bone composition, but also different parts of the skeleton. A decent-sized sloth, but it's the hardware built on for its lifestyle that we are after. This sloth was amphibious to the point of comfortably making journeys out to sea. Riverways, open water, lakes were all fair game to explore, armed enough to fend off attacks from oceanic predators like sharks and whales. To do this, a flexible spine, which will help greatly with swimming and maneuvering underwater when it paddles its thick tail side to side. It also has extremely dense bones, which will serve as a ballast to help it sink underwater and possibly even walk on the riverbeds. Balancing out any buoyancy from the theropod air sacs inside the body, Hank is now a very adept diver. You may have noticed that we haven't talked about armor yet. We'll be taking the attributes from the Komodo dragon and, believe it or not, the sloth. Using these will prevent Hank from being too armored to the point where it can't move comfortably. The scales of the Komodo dragon are different from those of a crocodile. Crocodiles have scutes, hardened plates of keratin. Lizard scales are formed from the uppermost layers of skin tissue with a bony component, like tiny osteoderms developing as they age. So, in our case, Hank, as he grows up to adulthood, will slowly but surely develop stronger armor as he matures. To further reinforce parts of the armor and to not leave Hank with just scales, Lestodon comes in handy once more. This animal just so happened to belong to a group of ground sloths that developed a mesh of bony nodules underneath parts of their bodies, resisting many types of slashing and stabbing wounds. With these two types of armor present, we have an exceptionally well-armored Hank, with hardened scales, bony support, and an underlying layer of sloth armor padding. Particularly determined attackers might still be able to pierce, but they would have a lot of that force diminished before they reached any vital organs, all whilst maintaining enough agility for Hank to fight back. The final part of this hybrid anatomy to discuss is the brain. And since we're planning for this creature to collaborate with Indom 2.0 in a special experiment, we'll have both of these have a common denominator when it comes to brain composition: the chimpanzee. This brain needs no further introduction. Collaborative enough to formulate strategy with members of its own kind, and aggressive instincts on par with some of the most violent animals on Earth. For this experiment, both an Indom 2.0 and Hank 2.0 will be raised together in captivity, well-fed so that they may not turn on each other, and encouraged to collaborate as they mature. More details on this will be revealed on our channel at a future date. But now that we wrapped up this section, we are happy to present Hank Resurgence. Name meaning Hank the Risen, a more powerful and functional hybrid, designed to complement the Indom 2.0 in their future task to take over Skull Island.
So with all of Goji Center's nerd talk out of the way, oh, I'm so lonely. Let's finally reevaluate Hank versus Indom. First up, sheer bulk. Hank 2.0 is huge. Some would even say massive. His sheer size, along with his long arms, while not as defined as the Indom's muscles, would be like putting a bodybuilder up against a powerlifter. Think C-Bump versus Eddie Hall. Hank's sheer volume and weight would act like a snowplow. If he charges into Indom 2.0, while there would be a struggle at first, Hank would quickly overpower his foe, and it would honestly just be the best for Indom to just let it happen. As if she bites or slashes at him, she'll get those nasty neurotoxins right in her mouth. Secondly, just waiting in water. If Hank stays in a body of water long enough, his toxins would seep into the water itself. And if when Indom needs to come get a sip, she would start to have an insane acid trip. Now, whether or not this kills her, this does put her at a huge disadvantage, allowing Hank to quickly swoop in and do what the Moza did to her predecessor. And if you're worried this trap won't work in Indom, as she'd of course see all the dead animals around, you have to keep in mind, Hank is smart. He would either remove them from the surrounding area, or just drag their bodies down to the water and eat them later. Another cool way Hank could take them to Indom is back to his roots, his jaw. Now, while not having a bite as strong as the Indom's, Hank once again has a faster bite though, being able to cause a lot of bleeding in a short amount of time, and along with its wicked toxins, would ensure temporary paralysis. And there is one other tactic, but we'll save that for another video. So to answer the question is hard. A battle between these two would be close and fierce. Now, while I am of course biased to Hank, putting the bias aside, it's a close 50-50. There are ways for either of them to take each other out. It really just depends on their own environment and who gets the jump. If the Indom ambushes Hank, Hank could hold his own, but I feel he would go down. If Hank plows into the Indom and manhandles her, he could take the win. There are ways for either of these beasts to take each other out. But Overall, Hank 2.0 is a massive upgrade, having a retractable sail, huge arms, long claws, a deadly bite, and all of that paired with the sheer size and poisons and hallucinogenics. Yeah, no dinosaurs can have a good time fighting this monstrosity.
Yeah,
But
probably
let me know
not.
what you think in the comments. Do you think the new Hank could beat the Indom 2.0? Let us know. But as always, everybody, keep collecting. Goji Guy, out. See ya. So, do we have an agreement? We get your research, you get ours.
Checks out with us.
All right, well, just sign here and then Hank's sales are all yours.
Pleasure doing business with you.
Same to you. Though we're still a little upset about you killing our first hybrids, but I'm sure soon enough you'll make up for it.
Well, they were a threat. You know how this business works. Oh, and one last question.
Yes?
That fish you made?
Ah, yeah, Vex.
Well, I've seen the supposed rumors that she's missing, but I know that's a lie. Where is she?
Well, I suppose you should know, since you are our partners now. Too many smaller companies were sending hybrids to fight her, so we released her siblings to help.
Ah, I see. But you didn't answer. Where is she?
Well, if you must know, Vex has now entered the Baltic Sea.
Oh, the Baltic Sea. Okay. That means something's going on. So that was the Hank that caused the war between Goji Center and Goji Guy. Now, we'll be doing another one on the Mesozoic herbivore hybrid, Samson. Bye-bye!